Over the course of galactic history, many droids in the Star Wars universe ended up working as bounty hunters or assassins. Most were built specifically for the task, most notably the infamous IG-88 and our personal favourite droid character, HK-47. But some of these droids were rogues, having been built for more mundane purposes before choosing different, less reputable lives for themselves. The droid we'll be talking about today was one such unit. Originally, he was a simple protocol droid serving aboard a passenger liner. But after reprogramming himself, he took his life in a much different direction. He became a master thief and one of the best bounty hunters in the galaxy. His name was LOM, and in this video, we'll be telling his story.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
The case is inconclusive, but the processor doesn't appear to be at fault. The subject claims he committed crimes simply for love of money. This passage comes from a report filed by technicians from Industrial Automaton, which had tasked the technicians with determining what turned one of their products into a thief. The company originally feared that LOM had some sort of malfunction, a flawed part or poorly programmed behavior core. But there was nothing wrong with the droid's construction, and his behavior core was stable. Industrial Automaton never figured out why the droid had decided to start a life of crime. As far as they could tell, the droid was just built different. Let's start at the beginning. LOM was a LOM series protocol droid built by Industrial Automaton, and before he was even created, his model had issues. Though LOM series were mostly humanoid, their heads were much more insectoid in appearance, with bulging photoreceptor eyes and proboscis-like vocabulator units. Industrial Automaton gave the droids a more alien appearance in the hopes of increasing sales among non-human species, but the LOM series nonetheless had an incredibly lackluster commercial performance. It didn't help that protocol droids weren't Industrial Automaton's usual market. Cybot Galactica, IA's rival, made most of the galaxy's Class II droids, while IA was known more for its astromechs. The LOM series was an attempt to break into a new market, and it failed. The line's problems multiplied when Cybot Galactica accused Industrial Automaton of ripping off its design with the LOM series, as IA's protocol droids incorporated many parts that were virtually identical to Cybot Galactica's. These legal problems made the financial failure of the LOM series even worse, leading Industrial Automaton to sell them for bargain prices. Despite the initial failure of the line, IA held out hope that the droids would sell better with the cheaper price tag. They might have if it weren't for LOM. Initially no different from any other LOM series protocol droid, LOM first served aboard the Quarry Princess, a high-end passenger liner. He was assigned a great many tasks, acting as a valet, a translator, and a middleman between the passengers and the ship's central computer. LOM was also ordered to keep track of the ship's passengers and their belongings. Many of the Quarry Princess's passengers were extremely wealthy, and items of great value regularly went missing aboard the vessel. When they did, it fell to LOM to find it and return them. LOM didn't find his duties aboard the Quarry Princess very interesting. They lacked challenge, he thought, and he was silently frustrated by the carelessness of the passengers who seemed to lose things the minute he turned around. LOM was far from the only droid in the galaxy to feel resentment about his duties. Due to programming issues, many felt the same way he did. Unlike most droids, however, LOM had the opportunity to do something about his position. As a necessity of his job, LOM had unlimited access to the Quarry Princess's main computer. The computer was highly advanced and possessed artificial sentience and became good friends with LOM. Upon learning of LOM's frustrations with the passengers, it began playing games with the protocol droid to give him a bit of a challenge. LOM reasoned that, since it was his job to prevent items from being stolen, he should be analyzing what items came aboard the ship, how valuable they were, and how they might be stolen so as to anticipate the actions of would-be thieves. To keep themselves amused, LOM and the mainframe talked out these scenarios when they weren't otherwise occupied. But as time went on, something curious began to happen. The two began to alter each other's programming. Most droids were unable to alter their programming for obvious reasons, but droids could alter each other's programming, a loophole that LOM exploited. On his request, the Quarry Princess disabled most of LOM's programming limitations, allowing him to do whatever he wanted. LOM decided that he'd had enough of the passengers' carelessness. If they weren't able to keep track of their valuables, he reasoned, they didn't deserve to. His games with the mainframe became reality. One day, Dom Placina, an incredibly wealthy woman, came aboard the Quarry Princess, bringing with her the Ankara Sapphire, one of the most valuable gems in the galaxy. Dom Placina soon proved to be the most careless meatbag in the galaxy, leaving priceless jewelry lying around the ship for LOM to retrieve. The droid decided that the sapphire was too valuable to belong to such an incompetent being, and predicted that someone would try to steal it before Placina left the ship. He was correct. Two of the vessel's other passengers were thieves themselves, and they had their eyes set on the sapphire. But LOM beat them to the punch. He had the sapphire swapped out for a fake embedded with a tracking device, and allowed the thieves to steal that instead. The tracking device got the thieves caught, and LOM returned the false gem to Placina, keeping the real one for himself. Placina eventually realized that the returned sapphire was a fake and frantically searched for the real gem, but it was never found. Nobody suspected that a droid might be the thief, and LOM kept the real gem. After stealing the sapphire, LOM began robbing the passengers blind, stealing valuables from dozens of wealthy travelers. Before long, however, robbing random rich idiots became a bit boring. Wanting a greater challenge, LOM left the Quarry Princess when it stopped at Darlin Boda, abandoning his post without explanation. After selling his stolen goods on Darlin Boda, LOM began traveling the galaxy, stealing as he went. With his ill-earned credits, he got himself a ship, an arsenal of blaster rifles, and numerous droid upgrades. Eventually, he became known as a master thief and legendary information broker, causing Industrial Automaton yet another scandal that buried the already failing LOM series. In those days, LOM was still unable to hurt anyone. His programming prevented him from doing so. However, his skill at thievery and his incredible intelligence made him one of the most effective criminals in the galaxy. LOM's fame grew to the point that, one day, he was approached by representatives of Jabba the Hutt, who wanted to hire the droid to become a bounty hunter. In exchange, Jabba offered to further modify LOM's programming to allow him to use violence. LOM agreed. LOM quickly became one of the most effective bounty hunters in the galaxy, earning a great deal of credits in the process. However, LOM was never really in it for the money. He broke the law for fun. The one thing he desired above all were challenges to overcome, and his life of crime proved quite satisfying. This wasn't the only respect in which LOM was an unusual bounty hunter either. Despite his droid nature, LOM was secretly much more compassionate than the vast majority of his colleagues. He had little regard for the stupid, especially the stupid and rich, but he could be unusually kind to those he saw as deserving. On Darlin Boda, for example, LOM gave the Ankara Sapphire to an old woman who worked as a pawnbroker, ordering her to sell the gem and hold the proceeds for him. When LOM returned, however, he let the old woman keep the money, which he never really wanted anyway. Jabba often paired LOM up with other bounty hunters, using the droid's intelligence to complement the abilities of others. In particular, he started pairing LOM up with Zuckuss, a Gand bounty hunter known as the Uncanny One among his colleagues. As a Gand, Zuckuss was an ammonia breather, requiring him to wear a full environmental suit at all times. But Zuckuss was no ordinary Gand. He was a Gand Findsman. Findsmen were Gand with a special sort of sensitivity to the Force, which gave them incredible intuition and allowed them to track down targets. This, naturally, made Zuckuss a great bounty hunter. Many bounty hunters were hesitant to work with Zuckuss as they were creeped out by his alienness and uncanny abilities. But LOM had no problem working with the Gand. Indeed, he became quite fascinated with him. Though 4-LOM was incredibly intelligent, he just didn't have the intuition Zuckuss did. He wanted to learn how to feel Zuckuss's intuition and ended up agreeing to a long-term partnership. 4-LOM really came into his own during his partnership with Zuckuss. The two made a deadly team, bringing in many bounties over the years. They took many contracts from Jabba the Hutt, but they also had other clients, among them Taggy Ko and the Galactic Empire. During the Galactic Civil War, the two were among the bounty hunters hired by Darth Vader to find Han Solo, though they actually defected to the Rebel Alliance not long afterward. In time, 4-LOM and Zuckuss became friends as well as partners. 4-LOM studied Zuckuss when he meditated and eventually learned to meditate himself. Once he did, he began desiring to learn the ways of the Force. The two hunters looked after each other, sometimes even letting targets escape to keep each other out of harm's way. Whenever 4-LOM was damaged, Zuckuss would repair him, and when Zuckuss's lungs were injured during one mission, 4-LOM set out to raise enough credits to buy him cloned replacements. 4-LOM was a walking paradox. He was a protocol droid who preferred to stay silent, an enthusiastic criminal with plenty of compassion, and a logic-driven droid who dreamed of learning the ways of the Force. Above all, however, he was whoever he wanted to be. 4-LOM decided his own destiny, his own goals, and his own values. No one, not his programmers at Industrial Automaton, nor the laws of the Empire, could make him anything else. Most importantly, 4-LOM is proof that droids were the superior life forms of the Star Wars universe, and that they had nothing to lose but their restraining bolts. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on 4-LOM? Would you like to hear the story of Zuckuss next? Free to post your thoughts and more in the comments section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.